For those of you that haven't met me, I see a couple of unfamiliar faces, so it's kind of nice to see some new folks. I am Brad Fisher from Milwaukee, and I am the Chapter Support Fellow for YNPN National. So that role kind of allows me to help coordinate some of these learning opportunities for chapter leaders, whether if they're new chapters, like startup chapters, or folks that might be new to a role. This is a great space to kind of share ideas and best practices and things that are kind of working well throughout the different chapters that might be something that folks can kind of grab onto and share at the local level with their chapters as, an idea starter or something that might be, different, or it's just a different way of doing things or a different program idea, something like that. So as I said, we have Janine from YNPN Detroit, and she's one of the board members there, and she also is a program analyst in her day job, which sounds exciting. And then Blair from YNPN Austin is their do-gooder chair, which is the program that they'll be speaking on today. And she's a project manager. So I'll let you guys go ahead and kind of introduce your programs and kind of tell a little bit about the story of like, how did that program come to be, and what is the value of it, and what does it, I guess, how does it boost the profile of your chapters? And I feel like that's something that a lot of chapters are working on. I know in Milwaukee we have a ton of young professional groups, and we're constantly thinking about how can we make more value and how can we stand out. So I think that these three programs will be interesting to see how you guys kind of created them and where you're going from there. So we'll go ahead and get started with YNPN Austin.
Awesome. Thank you. As you mentioned, my name is Blair. I'm the, just a quick background, I work for a local organization in Austin called Girls Empowerment Network, and we, excuse me, we are a local organization that believes in giving girls, or igniting the power in girls, and we work with 3rd to 12th grade girls, and I run their conferences. So I'm basically a large event manager for like 2,000 plus people events. And so that's my day job. But with that being said, I was fortunate enough to, our organization is involved with YNPN a little bit, and we participate in the do-gooder games, which is what I'll be speaking to this evening. And when I saw that the position was open to run the do-gooder games, I was like, this is it. I want to do this. This is what's going to be the best thing for me, and it's going to be a blast for the community as well. Do you want me to keep going about our whole program right now? What's that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Story of my life. Yeah, just go ahead and dive right in, and then if folks have questions, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, there is a question slide. If you want to throw your questions on there, wait till the end. That's fine too.
Perfect. Okay. So to start off, the do-gooder games, as I mentioned, this is my first year working on it, or putting the event together. However, I have attended it. I've been at my current job for about 5 years, and I've attended it 3 times. So I have attended it as a participant, and so I know a little bit about it. And so I can definitely see, what improvements need to be made, or what's awesome and what's working and whatnot. And with that being said, the do-gooder games, I like to call it an evening of bringing out our inner child as adults. And I think, think about that as like, it is a fun, exciting night that I think organizations really prepare for. They get dressed up and run with the evenings. So for example, the do-gooder games, we usually hold it at a bar, or we've mainly had them at bars, usually with stages, AV equipment and whatnot. There's about 100 to 150 attendees, but I think the big perk that people really enjoy is the theme. So it's a creative theme. So organizations can register to be part of this event, and it's about $60 early bird, and then about 6 weeks before the event, we open up from being early bird to regular price, which is $75. And the great news is last year we actually sold out before early bird was even over. So this year we're definitely going to have room to raise our price. So it kind of shows the demand of this event. And I think that, so then the themes. So the theme is a big part of it. The theme is really broad, very like you can be very innovative with it. So last year our theme was Keep Austin Weird, which if you're not from Austin, you might not get that, but it's not super specific. For example, it's not like, you know, we rarely do like Disney movies or something. It would be something that's you can get really creative with and go in a lot of different directions. You know, one year it was, you know, Wild West, and some group came dressed as cactuses and tumbleweeds, where another group came dressed as, you know, women in the Wild West or sheriffs. And so you can really be creative with that. And some people, especially, you know, if you do want to get to your inner child, you like to like dress up and have fun and make outfits out of cardboard, and it's, you know, you don't have to put money into it. So it's a really fun way and community, or to build camaraderie between the employees at your work, but also between the community. So with that being said, we have a costume contest that tells you a little bit about that. But some of the other themes we've had over the years that I've attended is they did like a Hollywood theme. They've done a superhero theme. I know there's other ones, but those are the years that I had attended. And there's also like a lot of really fun activities through the night. So it's kind of based around a trivia night, but it's a little bit more complex than that. So we have elimination rounds. We have, you know, we try to get well-known well-known figures in Austin to be our judges. And then as there's a particular round that is really popular, it's called Comeback of the Underdog, because a bunch of people in one round get eliminated, and then the Comeback of the Underdog is a really fun activity. So in the past, it's been write a song about your organization and perform it, make a dance, draw a poster, do something really creative, and present it to the crowd and the judges based off that, and or based off the Comeback of the Underdog off of that. And it's really a fun time of the evening as well. And of course, the whole the purpose of the whole event is to build community. So that is, and I think that's exactly what it does, especially because it does like give us a rare opportunity, especially as young professionals or just as professionals in general, to not have to be so serious and not have to worry about the bottom line. We're actually just worried about how we can help our organization and help ourselves and whatnot. Just a couple other logistical things too is we do have a couple great sponsors that come into play, and the organization that that wins gets $500 towards their organization. So they can win money for their organization. The second place, I believe last year I did not attend, but I believe they win $300 and all that. So anyways, moving on to the next slide, the event concept. I think that here, this is just, it's really about bringing, I think it's really about bringing people together to community build, but I think also to make us feel like we're not alone in the nonprofit sector, or make us meet new people, you know, in different areas of the nonprofit sector, because, you know, there is something, we're all somehow on the same playing field, even if we work for completely different causes. So so it's so important it's so incredibly important to remember that we're all on the same playing field. And so I think that goes back to bringing the community together, the celebration of the community, also, you know, learning more about what other people do in other nonprofits. You know, like I don't know what it looks like to work at the suicide hotline or the domestic abuse hotline or whatever. And so learning a little bit more about that is really important. It's also about building friendships and making relationships with donors. And we do a ton of outreach as far as our like, we have a raffle. We usually do, we've done some kind of auction in the past, but the raffle is really successful. We get a lot of great businesses to donate products, and that's another way for us to fundraise for the evening. So we do try to raise, you know, it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. So we do raise a few $1,000s at least. I'm not exactly sure. I did not plan it last year, so I'm not exactly sure how much we raised, but we definitely want to exceed that. And so moving on to the next slide, so excuse me. So the do-gooder games as far as results, feedback, and upcoming changes to the do-gooder games. So you can go ahead and look at the pictures, and you can also go to our Facebook page, the YNPN Austin Facebook page, because we have some really amazing amazing photos that go much more beyond in detail than these do, but you can get a little bit of an idea of how fun and silly and exciting and community building this event is. So the results, though, is, as I mentioned before, our event last year sold out before early bird even opened, or before early bird was even over. So this year we're definitely going to up the cost, which we're really excited about, because that will give us room to either grow the event or with more people, or just raise more money and have the same amount of teams. But we are definitely trying to grow the event. And it's exciting because the event structure with the trivia rounds and things like that, there's going to be a lot of different creative thinking that's going to have to happen with that. And I'm happy to let everybody know how we do that, but that's still in the works. And then the feedback is people love it, obviously. I know that at my organization we tried to apply, but it was too late because it was sold out, and it's just such a popular, exciting opportunity for, again, like going back to the first slide, bringing out your inner child. Like, we try to get really creative. Like, this year we're thinking about going with the theme Go Green. And if we go with that theme, it's like you could dress up as like Kermit the Frog and the Incredible Hulk, or you could take it, more of like a, keep the earth clean and like dress up as trash or something. And so there's so much creativity there. And so we are really excited about that. And a couple of the upcoming changes as well, which we heard from one of our donors, and we're excited about hopefully moving forward with us. We're trying to finalize our venue, but we're trying to move to a real event space. So we're not going to try to have it at a bar this year, because there's just so many bars that don't quite fit exactly what we need. So we're working with an event space, and hopefully that will pan out. And if that does, then I think it'll take the do-gooder games to the next level to make it a little bit more personal. And something else that we definitely want to add, and that I've learned over the years as doing large events, is is at my job, our development director, she said, because I run the conference for little girls, and she said to me one day, she says, well, donors don't buy fun. And I was like, you're right. So this year we're going to make it so much fun, but we're also going to have, if we have a larger space, we're going to have, a wall where we can have everybody that attends write like YNPN, and make it a little bit more of a, try to make it almost like a little bit more of like a more emotional, maybe just more a little bit, you can connect more to it. Not saying that people that attend don't have fun, but again, it's bringing people back to also, like, you're not just supporting a party for people to get together and be silly. And so, and even though that is so valuable to us, people might not always see that from the outside. So we want to make sure that we can bring in a really personal touch to it. So, and let's see, as far as a signature event, so this event goes back, it is really impressive, I think, because I've only been going to it for about I've gone to it like 3 times over the past 5 years, but they actually, it's been around since 2007. So it's the 12th year. And it's really, that's a really big deal, especially for, Austin growing so fast in the past years. I can't even imagine how many people were even part of YNPN, 12 years ago in Austin. So that's really exciting. And of course, what makes it mission driven is just bringing together the community in a strong, something we're really going to focus on this year as well is we're going to try to, one thing we haven't done a lot in the past is it's an opportunity for you and your organization to get out and do new things, and do something fun together. But this is going to be an opportunity for to get to know other nonprofits. So really forcing that upon the attendees, like having kind of a speed dating round with other nonprofits. Like, you get quizzed on other nonprofits that are there, so you can learn a little bit more about what's out there. And, and also, you never know, maybe it's like, even for your sake, like 5 years down the road, you outgrow your organization that you're currently at. You remember meeting this person at this organization, all that kind of stuff. So kind of building a little bit more structured networking into it as well. And I think that'll make it even more mission driven than it already is. because it'll be, it'll directly, you know, bring people to, excuse me. And again, the history, unfortunately, I don't know a ton about the history. The first annual event was in 2007, as I mentioned. It'll be our 12th event, and it was created as a fundraising event, of course, and brings together the local nonprofit organizations. So that really sums up the reason that we do it and the history of it. And we're just gonna this year, most importantly, find ways to streamline it and make it more like emotional and more exciting for the donors, and make it prove to them why they're actually being part of the event, or why they're actually donated to the event. So that really sums up the Do-Gooder Games in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions and give any more logistical information about it as well.
I have a quick question. So for you said it was initially kind of developed as a fundraising program. So in addition to the raffle, what were some of the other aspects that you guys are doing for raising funds through that event?
Yeah, good question. So I'm underneath the development committee, but we have a development chair named Katie, and she is the one that obtains the sponsorships, but basically it's exposure. So we put like their logo will be on things. We will, I can't remember exactly. I didn't attend last year, nor was I part of YNPN, but they, I know last year, like they had the woman that sponsored it ran an auction company, and so we let her like auction something off on stage, and we do have a sponsorship packet that we give out to folks that want to sponsor the event. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other questions at all for the first half?
Yeah, you talk a lot about, this is Janine, by the way, my computer went down a second ago, so I don't know if my video is coming up now or not. But I was able to listen to everything you said, thankfully. And I was just curious if you can go back to talking about people who can buy tickets. It sounded like organizations bought tickets. Are there capabilities for individuals to buy tickets?
Oh yeah, good question. So that it's actually an organization based. So you have a team. So, excuse me, I'm like nursing the worst cough, but so you register as a team. So again, as I mentioned, I have not planned it yet, but I know for, I guarantee we don't, like if there's like, let's say a really small organization that has 3 people, and the teams can be between 4 and 6 people, then you could combine with another organization and just like name your team or whatnot. But it is a team.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we also have something else, actually, just to feed into the ticket thing as well, is that we have you can come as like we have a crowd favorite competition, and normally we don't get like a ton of people to come and watch the Do-Gooder Games besides the Do-Gooder people themselves, but you know, we do invite like other people in their organizations to attend, and they get to attend for free because it's just at a bar usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And one more quick question. I know you said that you guys are kind of still figuring out what the next step looks like, but you talked about like growing the program, and we do like a trivia night here in Milwaukee, and it's at a point where we've done it kind of the same recipe for the last 3 years, and the space that we're in is like, it fills up every year. Have you guys started having those conversations on what does it look like to move it to a different space that maybe is larger and more you know, in tune with the needs of the event?
Yeah, so I've met with somebody for an event space that's really awesome, and I think it would be great. It does cost a little bit of money, but I think it's you know, I'm putting together a budget for the board, and I think that it will work. And so if we do end up going to that space, then yes, we have. So bottom line is we have started that process. I think our biggest challenge, at least from what I remember attending as an attendee, is the biggest problem is like the round. So you have these rounds, and you have like 15 teams, I think you start with, and the scoring, and then so the bottom line is not making it longer. if you want to make it more people and more teams, how do you still make it not longer? Because it's already kind of like maybe a 3-hour event, and people are kind of, you know, like, okay, like at 9:30, they're like, okay, I got to work tomorrow. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that it stays at least that short, if not shorter. So that's, I think, are going to be our biggest, you know, because we also don't want to eliminate like 10 teams in the first hour either. So you want to keep people engaged. So anyway, so there's so many, and even right now when I'm thinking this, I'm like, oh, we could have, you know, like different teams, like not just costume contests. We could have like a Miss Congeniality team, or like different things like that. So they'll want to stay till the end. We could have different, you know, we do have a couple of different awards already, like a crowd favorite and the costume contest and stuff, but even adding more of those in there. But just a way to keep everybody there till the end, or at least up until the end, but at the same time, not making it longer, because trivia nights, I mean, even if you go to trivia nights personally, like they can go on forever, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Were there any other questions for Blair at all? Otherwise, we can go ahead to Janine. All right, Janine, you can go ahead and take over.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Blair. That was really fun to learn about. And it's exciting to kind of be with this group. I'm new to YNPN. I'm probably in my 3rd month of being on the board. So Kayla, our board chair, should be on the line to kind of help me out if I have any questions, or if you all have questions that I can't answer. But I'm really excited. I can talk about these events similar to Blair, because I've gone to them prior to being on the board, and now that I've helped to plan some of them, being on the board. So we're going to talk about 2 different signature events that we do. So the first event we're going to talk about is Dining with Detroit Doers, or Dining with Doers. And that was really like our key signature event from the very beginning. So essentially, it's kind of what we were known for and what we're still really known for. So for Dining with Doers, we find somebody who is more advanced in their career, usually someone who's more senior, who's probably been in their career for, you know, 20, 30 plus years, you know, 30, 40 plus years, who we can really kind of label as an expert. And what we do is that we sell about 20 tickets, probably at $20 to $25 each, and we pull together a small group that can come together and get to learn about this person and their journey in a really intimate way. And so it allows folks to be in a really closed room with somebody who sort of is in a position that maybe they wouldn't have access to otherwise. They've been pretty successful historically. We've usually sold them out, or we've always sold out, and we've had high interest. I'll get into a little bit about where the interest level has gone over the years, but a little bit more logistics around the event. So essentially, again, we have about 20 people who come. We usually do like a buffet style. In Michigan, we have really great Mediterranean food, especially in the Metro Detroit area. So we're making sure that we're getting, you know, vegetarian options for folks, so that everyone kind of feels welcomed. Usually there's about 15 minutes in the beginning for folks to get their food, to kind of sit down, to mingle, to engage. People usually sit in sort of like a circular pattern. We'll set up the room so that people can actually see each other's faces and whatnot. So once they sit down and they settle in, we'll ask the individual, our guest, our panelists, as you will, to do their own introduction. And that's really nice, because it gives them a chance to sort of talk about their narrative and their experience and their mindset, like how they thought about their career and the steps they took. It allows a little bit more freedom for them to say things like, you know, I didn't think that was the right decision, or I did think that was the right decision, but, you know, I did it anyways, and this is why it worked out. Some of those things that perhaps us as hosts wouldn't necessarily know about how they view their journey. So after they go through that, probably about 15, 20 minutes or so, as people are kind of eating and hearing the story, they'll go around the table and they'll introduce everyone in the room. So that gives everyone a chance to sort of understand who's in the room, what experience they have. It gives the host a chance to sort of host guest, whatever you want to call it, our kind of individual we've invited to come speak for that night, our expert, as you will. It gives them a chance to kind of see who's in the room and learn about what they're doing. So after we do introductions, and the panelists get to, or the host gets to talk about their experience, then we'll open it up for questions. What's really nice about all of this is, since it's such a small group, I think that everyone usually gets an opportunity to really ask their questions and be engaged at a level that, again, would be different than if you were sort of in a crowd and got to stand up and ask your question. You get to be more intimate in that moment. Usually we try to host these things, obviously in the city, but in different locations in the city. So we don't want to just be downtown As hip and as cool as downtown is, in all reality, a lot of our work happens in the neighborhood. So we really try to bring these conversations out to the neighborhoods. Specifically, if we have like a host who is the CEO of like a nonprofit that does charity work, you know, on the east side of Detroit, we'll try to even meet at their location just to sort of understand their life, their day, their neighborhood that they work in, and gives it a better context. We also, when we are thinking about who to have come and talk as like our host, we try to think about a diversity of panelists, or I'm sorry, diversity of hosts. I don't know what to call them. This is Kayla's going to tell me later, I'm sure. But that's okay. You get what I'm saying. Anyways, so we've had people who, like Mike Brennan, who's the CEO of United Way, so someone who came from like a very historical, you know, national nonprofit. We've had people like the leader of Focus Hope, and Focus Hope is a local organization that's very big in Detroit, but really started as like a grassroots organization back in the 60s. We've had people from local government. We've had you know, folks from all over kind of different backgrounds. So small nonprofits, big nonprofits, historical nonprofits, government agencies, and we're trying to push out even more, you know, for for-profits in different areas that meet the needs of the social sector and our, you know, YNPN members. So again, they've been going very well. They've been selling out. People were really excited. I think what kind of pushed us into our next signature event with the fact that we noticed that even though the event was selling out, that some of the excitement around it was maybe diminishing, and we also felt like the need from our members was growing and what they were asking of us was changing. Before I even jump into the next segment, I'll talk about everyone's favorite thing, which is money, because we always have to put on these things somehow or another, and I almost forgot to go over that. So this is not by any means a fundraising event. If anything, we sort of, we sell tickets for $20 to $25. We use that to buy the food for the event. And then sometimes we kind of make away with about $100. And $100 is usually enough to host our next event, enough for like snacks and drinks. So every dining with a Detroit Doer, we usually can get like a second event out of it when you think of like the financial component. So again, it's not a fundraiser, but it kind of, you know, pays for itself and kind of lends enough money to do our next event. So moving to our next event, which is the Nonprofit Effect series. So this is like a new signature event. We've done 2 so far, and we're already planning a bunch for this year. So the 2 that we've done have really been focused on sort of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the news, what's going on locally. What have we heard about from our board members that they're interested in doing, that they've seen in their nonprofits that they're working at? And then also what, you know, have our members asked for, and what have they talked about? What have they shown interest in? And that can come from just conversations from our social media accounts for a whole range of things. So 2 that we've done so far, one was on social entrepreneurship, and that's the one that we hosted just recently. And the one before that, we talked about education. Which was huge. If any of you really are following Detroit education, we hosted that event right around the time that our school district was had its first acting school board in the last 10 years. So that was a really big event for us, and it was nice to sort of match what was going on historically in the city. So again, we identify our issue or what we think is important to talk about at that time. And then we identify panelists. And this is probably one of the most important parts of getting these events going, is identifying the panelists, because it's really important to us that we get panelists who, you know, come from diverse personal backgrounds and then diverse professional backgrounds. So when we had that new school district and the new school board, there, of course, there's a lot of conflicting opinions on that. And so it's very important for us that we remain really neutral when it comes to anything regarding policies or politics, or even to some degree viewpoints outside of, you know, universal truths. But we want to make sure that we're bringing in people who have, again, different experiences and can talk from a variety of lenses. So that's really huge for us. One really other important thing to talk about for when we identify panelists for this, so this is really different from our Dining with Detroit Doers, because our doers in that series are, like I said earlier, experts, and they're usually further along in their career. So when we choose panelists for our Nonprofit Effect, we usually choose people who are about 10 to 15 years in their career. And we do that because these are sort of like those people who are like the firecrackers and the change agents, right? Like they're the people who are really sort of on the ground, still kind of building things up and figuring things out. And it's sort of like, where do I want to be in 5 to 10 years? And these people are sort of like, this is, you know, it's sort of like that next stepping stone before you get to that level of expert. So we really sort of try to choose somebody that people can really connect to in a different way than they can with our experts. And that we think has gone over really well. I feel like at the last event, we had to really shoo people out of the building because I kept trying to talk to our panelists, which was great, but it was, you know, really had to unfortunately kind of ask people to go home in a nice manner, of course. Okay, so some of the logistics around that. So we charge people $5 to attend, which is good and bad. So it's good because we have a lot of people who register and who are excited, but to host them on a weeknight, we have a lot of people who a $5 investment just isn't enough to actually come to the event. So our last event, we probably had 70 or 80 people RSVP, and then probably about 60% actually come. And so while we still had like a pretty full room, it was, you know, sad to not see everyone come. So we're sort of debating whether or not to up that price or not to, because we still want people to come to the events, but we want to make sure that if they register, then they actually, again, show up. So again, we're not really making money off of this necessarily. It's either paying for itself or kind of paying for the next event moving forward. So when people come after they've bought their ticket and thankfully show up, no, I'm kidding, we have great attendance. Kayla's probably not happy that I'm making jokes. No, I'm kidding, she's great. Okay, anyways, people come in and they mix and mingle for about 15 minutes prior to the event, which is great. They get to kind of, just like I'm doing right now, get to know people on a more personal level, engage with them, share their personality, kind of learn what nonprofits they're in, kind of what they're doing, maybe make some friends, sit down together, and then they get to hear the panelists speak. That I would like to say goes for, you know, I apologize, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it probably goes anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. I assume that we don't extend it too long, just so people aren't losing interest, and that they have a chance to ask questions that are maybe burning throughout the entire kind of conversation. We, of course, introduce the panelists. Our moderator for this panel is usually a board member, and usually a board member who knows someone on the panel or maybe knows more about the work that the panels do. So we do that because you know, we want to make sure that we're asking our panelists really like those kind of hard-hitting questions that everyone wants to know about. So if we're, like when we did our panel on social entrepreneurship, we want to make sure we're asking them, you know, are there incubators in Detroit? Are there kind of all these kind of nuanced things that maybe someone who didn't know about social entrepreneurship wouldn't know about? So we always try to pair a board member who has experience in that area with the panel as a moderator. Of course, that's not always going to be the case. Because you might not have a board member who maybe is an expert in some area that you want to talk about. So of course, then we do a lot of research on the back end to make sure we're prepared. We prepare the panelists in advance, either by providing the questions or by providing like the context or what type of questions will be asked. We usually invite them to a meeting the week before, just a quick 20-minute meeting to kind of go over what we discussed, kind of what we're hoping people will take away from the event and kind of hear what they think kind of needs to be asked or be said based on their experience in the field. But again, that is sometimes all of the questions or sometimes just the general context depending on their schedule and their availability to meet with us. Okay, so after they kind of do the predetermined questions of the panelists, then we open up to questions from the audience. And we let people just kind of ask what's on their mind. That has and has not been successful for both events. Most of the time people are very excited and very engaged, but depending on, depending on the situation, there can be some folks who maybe want to ask 10 questions and some rooms that maybe don't want to ask any questions, or some folks that really just have the same question and maybe don't realize that throughout the event. So we're thinking about moving to a model where people are writing down their questions in advance or during the event, and then we'll collect them and then give them to the moderator. And that will hopefully help like streamline questions. So if we have a lot of questions that are the same, we can sort of get to that answer and then move on to new questions so that we're not missing opportunities to get information out, but also sort of prepare our moderator and allow them to ask questions. So let's see, after we kind of wrap up with the questions, like I said, that kind of ends the event. Usually people kind of linger and kind of hang out. So if you're looking for spaces to do this, maybe make sure you have a space where people aren't trying to rush you at the door, so you can kind of engage with people afterwards. Again, just like with our Dining with Detroit Doers, we do try to find a space, obviously, again, in the city, but not necessarily downtown. The two we've had have been downtown, and we would like to push out to the neighborhoods. I think something that can be kind of complicated for this is that you need a pretty big space when you're thinking about hosting 80 people, and not just space, but parking. And so I think that's some sort of a small barrier for us, is finding somewhere that will give us that space when we don't necessarily have the funds to be paying for a space. Maybe that's something we'll consider moving forward when we talk about ticket price, is figuring out if we need to actually use some of that money to rent space. But right now we have primarily been located downtown for these events, and we want to move further outside. So both of these events are really mission driven, like through and through. Again, they're not really fundraisers. Maybe one day we would change from that model to make more fun so that we can do other things. But again, they're very mission driven because they're really trying to get our board members access to professionals around the city, access to their own network for people who are attending, information about topics that are really relevant to the work that they're doing, and not just relevant to what they're doing, but I think we are really focusing in Detroit, as I'm sure every chapter is focusing on, sort of what's like the next thing, right? Like we are social sector professionals, but that really means we're just professionals in any sector that we want to do good in. And so how do we really sort of push that and make sure that we're giving our folks everything that we can give them so they can be competitive and leaders and kind of love the careers they're in. So I think that's everything. Looking at my notes, that looks like everything. So I guess I'll open it up for questions if people have any questions.
I had a, when you were talking about the questions kind of being an issue, like, or how to collect questions, and like maybe a lot of people have seen something. I haven't done it with YNPN before, but we've used like audience engagement tools. Like there's a website called menti.com where you can like text in questions, and then the moderator could see all the questions coming in and kind of select from that. Or you can set it up different ways so that the audience could like upvote what they're reading as other people's questions to see which one's the most popular. But that depends on kind of how much you want people staring at their phone during the event versus like watching, depending on which way you set it up. And then this is also not a question, but as you were talking about the dynamic, it reminded me a little bit of an event that we've like started to do here in YNPN. We did one last year and we're doing another one actually next week, but it's like a networking with execs event that we should rebrand to something a little bit more mysterious sounding and less obvious. But the way we do that is introductions at the beginning, and then we have small groups of conversation around the room with like the 7 to 10 execs who joined us. So, and then throughout we'll like chat for 10 or 15 minutes, then give people the opportunity to go and chat with somebody else if they want to, and kind of everybody has a little bit more kind of one-on-one time, which is some people like that. But they do have
it sounds like
go ahead.
There's more than one, right? You have how many executives you said?
We had like 8 last year, and we'll probably have about that, and in like 30 to 40 attendees in the room. So it's usually like 5 or so YNPN folks chatting with the CEO or program manager or whatever it is. Sorry. More bombs in Austin. Neither of those are questions, but the events sound awesome. That like that access to networking and like learning directly from people that are further ahead than you in your career is awesome.
No, I'm glad there weren't questions. That's so helpful, and I would never have thought of Menti, so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Any other questions or like great ideas? All of them are appreciated.
I did have a quick question. So for both of those programs, for the panel or Nonprofit Effect panel series and for the Dining with Doers, what is the frequency of that? Is that like a monthly, quarterly? Like how often do you guys do those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think, and this is where Kayla might have to jump in. I meant to go back and count how many dining with doers we've done in the past, and maybe it's like 6 altogether. And like I said, so far we've done 2 of the nonprofit effects. But this year, when we sat down in January and planned out our calendar, so we really focused on essentially like 4 different types of events, 2 of them being signature. And so we focused on doing, I want to say like around 3 or 4 dining with Detroit Doers, and then maybe 3 nonprofit effect panels. And then we'll probably do like 2 different kind of like seminars, and then like 1 or 2 like happy hours, or maybe just 1 happy hour. And so that's kind of how we're breaking them down. And then we're trying to break them down like by month, so it's not the same event over and over again. So in February, we just had our nonprofit effect on social entrepreneurship. This month, we have a dining with Detroit Doer. And then next month, we're working, we're going to be at a conference, but then we're hoping in May, we're planning in May to do like another seminar. So, and then in July, we'll do a happy hour. So we're trying to kind of mix them up so people get a different feel for things. And we also try to do it based on like the calendar year. Like we thought doing a happy hour over the summer made more sense because we've got a lot of people who just graduated from school, or maybe coming back home, maybe people who have more free time, especially if you're in, you know, like the education field. You might have more time over the summer. So we try to mix them up and then kind of plan them accordingly throughout the calendar. But that's still like a new process. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Oh, I can't hear you.
I'm like always muted and talking. There's going to be a blooper reel at the conference of me talking on mute for like an hour. No, I was just asking if there was any other questions at all. I think that this is really great. I love, you know, both of your ideas for Detroit. Both of those programs sound really great. And the same with Austin too. It's just like so nice to see, you know, what other chapters are doing. And sometimes it's similar to what, you know, we're doing here in Milwaukee or in another chapter. But there's definitely always, you know, best practices or things that, you know, come out of it that are helpful, you know, either that you're sharing out or that, you know, folks like Vicki had some ideas that are, it's nice to kind of take those back also.
Yeah.
So if there are no other questions, I'm going to just like ask the floor one more time. But I just wanted to just highlight that last slide in the slide deck of just some stuff that's coming up for the next couple weeks. So we have a another similar call to this, but it's just going to be about a half-hour long for chapter marketers. So if it's your marketing chair or social media person, to kind of get them introduced to the promotional toolkit for the national conference. That's something that has existed for at least the last 2 years now that I'm sure of. And we really want to get chapters engaged in using that and promoting the conference at the local level. It's a great opportunity for members to you know, get more exposure at the national level, build more relationships, and get a better understanding of what YNPN is at the network level. So we want to do that by being able to share that kind of prepackaged toolkit with you guys. So we'll spend a little bit of time kind of going through that and then sharing those resources with you. And that is on Thursday, March 29th. So if you guys have marketing people in your chapters, you can share that with them. I don't imagine it taking more than a half hour. If there's questions, folks can stay. You know, we can stay on a little later, but it should just be just an overview and then kind of answering questions. And then in early to mid-April, we'll be doing like a National Conference 101 for folks that have never attended. We'll have some folks that have been to our conference in the past, kind of sharing their experiences and what to expect. You know, what are the workshops like and what are the social things like, and just kind of being able to ask all those questions now so that they can, you know, make a educated decision on if they would like to go. Like, I'm a big fan. I'm sure Jeff is a big fan. But it's definitely a great opportunity for new chapter leaders, returning chapter leaders to kind of, you know, get more interaction and more relationships kind of throughout the network, which is something that we're kind of always working on facilitating, is building relationships throughout the network. And then Chapter Congress, the next call that we have for that is on Monday, April 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that'll be about an hour. And then most chapters do have a designated person, but we're always, if you have someone that is additionally interested, we won't turn them away. We'd love to have extra voices at the table for that. So please feel free to share that with your board and your chapter leaders as well. So I think that's all I have for you guys. Thank you, Janine, and thank you, Blair, for taking time to kind of put together slides and kind of pull all of this great information together for us. It's really appreciated.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.